Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Wherever You Go podcast. My name is Sam Bauer, and I am the host of this podcast. And I do this podcast every week to share some encouragement, some fun, some love. And really, my goal with this is to help you lean into the person that God made you, so that you can fulfill the plan that He created for you. And today, what I'd like to talk about is self-worth. And this is a hard topic because it's so easy to get lost when it comes to self-worth and not even realize it, because it's not something that we think about a lot. It's not something that we talk about a lot. We just, in our interactions, our relationships, and our day-to-day, we can find ourselves wandering down the wrong path and wondering how we got there. And this came up recently for me in a couple different ways. One, my son had come home from school one day a few weeks ago in tears because he was not being like a super student. So in his class, they get rewarded for doing good things, and their teacher rewards them by moving up like a clothespin on a ranking thing that makes them become a super student. And you have to do good things consistently to get moved up. And then once you're a super student, I don't know what happens if you get a prize or what that looks like, but Will really want to be recognized as a super student. And he felt as though he was being overlooked, and he felt as though he was doing things that deserved recognition, and other kids were doing the same things and they were getting moved up, but he wasn't. And he was just very frustrated and sad. And it just kind of broke my heart a little bit, I'm not going to lie. So I handled that with him and worked him through that and assured him that he is a super student, even though he might not be recognized by his teacher, and that God sees everything we do, and that God knows the good things that we do, and that we need to get our self-worth from God, not from anybody else. Sometimes those rewards programs have great intentions, but that exact scenario can happen. Or maybe we're overlooked for a job promotion when we know we deserve it. Or maybe we are the last to be chosen for a team. And, that's cruddy. It feels cruddy. Or maybe we're told that our dreams are too big and we can never achieve them. Maybe we're told that we didn't go to the right school, or we don't look the right way. And we start to see other people having success, or looking the right way, or going to the right school, or being fed with a silver spoon, and we start to compare. And our self-worth starts to diminish because we're getting it from the world, not from the place that we should be getting it. And so today I want to encourage you all about self-worth. And I want to talk about an experience that I had recently after that, and after a couple other things that happened that have really, God has opened my eyes to a way to think about my own self-worth, and also to encourage others, that I'm just so passionate about sharing, and I'm so excited about sharing. But I have to tell you guys, the devil does not want you to hear this message. And I say that because this is the third time I've recorded this podcast, and I'm finally confident that it's going to get published and you're going to get to hear the message. But it's one of those things, I kept either forgetting to record it or hit the wrong button or do whatever. And for my podcast, I don't have a lot of time set aside for this, because I do own my own business and I have kids, and this is something that I do because I feel called to do it. And so it's just been like one of those things where I got a window and I recorded it and I didn't record. And then the next time I got a window and I recorded it, and I recorded it onto like an old account that I have that doesn't publish to Podbean. So I was telling Rob about it this morning, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm such a dingbat. Like, I haven't gotten it. And he said, well, I think the devil's trying to get you to not get this out, because he knows that this message is so good and people need to hear it. And it's going to give them confidence, and it's going to give them a really great sense of who they are and whose they are. And he doesn't want them to hear it. And I was like, dude, you hit the nail on the head. So I'm going to lead with that. And then I just wanted to share a Bible verse to get us into this. And then I'm going to share a little bit about what led me to thinking about this and praying about this, and what God responded to me with, and what I'd like you all to really challenge yourselves to do. So the Bible verse that I'm going to read is Psalm 139, 13 through 16. For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there was none of them. So, what an awesome passage in Psalm when we talk about self-worth. Write this one down, 139, 13 through 16, and go read it and pray on it, because the words here are very specific. For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. Before you were born, God knew you. He could have made you any way he wanted. He made all the trees that are in the world. He made all the different beautiful leaves. He made every blade of grass that shoots up through the earth. He chose them. He chose what the mountains would look like. He chose what the oceans would be like. He chose every beautiful sea creature that lives in the depths of the seas. He created every animal. And he chose to also create you. He gave you existence, and he chose exactly what you were going to look like. He chose exactly whose child you were going to be. He chose exactly whose brother and sister you were going to be. He chose exactly what school you were going to go to. He chose your days. How does it say it here? Every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as of yet there was none of them. Before your days began, God had your days planned out. He chose you to be here. He chose you to have life, and he chose everything and every part of it for a plan that is so great. So that's what I want to talk about when I talk about self-worth. I want to talk about the fact that God formed you in your mother's womb. He made you fearfully and wonderfully. And I love this sentence here. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. We know God doesn't make garbage. God makes wonderful works, and you are one of them. He chose to create you. That in itself should give you the confidence and the self-worth to go confidently in the direction of your dreams, to go live the life that you have imagined. I'm stealing words from David Henry Thoreau, but you guys, if we're looking around and we're getting our worth from the world, just refocus back into this Bible verse and remember that you were chosen. God didn't do it on accident. He didn't just say, I'm going to make a bunch of humans and I'm sure they'll be fine. No. Our God doesn't do that. Our God chose you exactly the way you are. He chose your personality. He chose the way that you look. He chose the parents that you would, every single little detail, you guys, to the number of hairs that are on your beautiful head. He chose that for you. And you are here because God chose you to be so. So I want to go back to that. And so here's where kind of all this comes from. So I was doing my Bible study last week, and it was reading through Samuel and 2 Samuel, like at the end of 1 Samuel and into 2 Samuel. And anyway, the Bible study was about self-worth, and it was about, can you think about a time where you didn't feel worthy and somebody gave you grace that you didn't feel like you deserved? And when I read the question, I kind of laughed because I was like, well, yeah, all the time. I don't think of one specific situation where I didn't feel worthy, but like, it's kind of how I feel all the time. And I meet on Friday mornings with two beautiful, wonderful, amazing women who are very successful. And we discussed this question, and all three of us were kind of like, yeah, this is a struggle. We all got our self-worth from somewhere else. Not that we weren't getting it from God, because we do understand that we were made by God on purpose, for a purpose. All three of us are Christian. All three of us love God and walk in faith. But we still were able to share some pretty deep struggles that we had about self-worth and where we get it from and why we are the way we are and why that happens. And I left that conversation with my cup both filled and also like feeling like, if those women who are amazing to me and do great things and have great careers and love God and they're role models to me in their spirituality, if they are struggling with their self-worth, I bet everybody is. And so I started to pray to God about this idea of self-worth and if he could help me find ways to share with others, to encourage them to understand that their self-worth also comes from him and not from this world. And the words he gave to me are, you are chosen. You're chosen. You are chosen. And I'm like, okay, God, like, I'm chosen. And I started thinking about it and how can that relate to like everything, right? Like, it's pretty amazing that God chose you to exist, that he chose me to exist. That's pretty freaking awesome. And if you think about it, like we just talked about in that Psalm 139 passage, that he formed your inward parts in your mother's womb. Before you were even born, he knew what you were going to be. So you were chosen to have life and to be a part of this world. But even more so than that, in your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me. As of yet, there were none of them. So not only did God choose to give you life, he chose how you were going to spend pretty much every minute of every day, very specifically. And I want you to get so much confidence out of that. Guys, we can't screw up. As long as we're walking in faith and we're walking with a heart for God, we can't go wrong because he's already planned out, wherever you went to college, God planned it out. Whoever was your best friend in elementary school, God chose you to be their best friend. God chose your school. He chose your job. He chose the situations that you've been in. He chose them specifically for you, and he chose you for them. And so one of the things that I thought about would be a good thing to do, and this is what I did, is I just kind of sat and closed my eyes, and I thanked God for choosing me. And so I'd like you, if you're not driving and if you're somewhere safe that you can do this, close your eyes and just, tell God, God, thank you for choosing me. Thank you for choosing to put me together exactly the way that you have, for a purpose that you have for me that I might not know yet, God, but thank you for choosing me for that. And then thank him for the things that you are. I started by saying, God, thank you for choosing me to be Rob's wife. What an awesome gift, So anyway, we're going to keep doing this and then I'm going to go into that. But thank you for choosing me to be Will and Andy's mom. And thank you for choosing me to be Tyler's stepmom. Thank you for choosing me to be my client's insurance agent. Thank you for choosing me to be Megan's friend. Thank you for choosing me to be Katie's friend. Thank you for choosing me to get to, sing in church last Sunday and get to lead worship and praise you. Thank you for choosing me to, whatever it is, you guys, whatever God has chosen you to be, start with that, thanking him for who you are. Because here's the thing, you guys, when you start to think this way, it changes everything. I've always thought to pray for the people that God's put in my life, right? I thank him every day for my husband. I thank him every day for my kids, probably multiple times that he's probably tired of hearing me say it. I thanked him for my parents. I've thanked him for my job and my business and my friends and like all these amazing people that he's put in my life. But never once did it dawn on me to thank him for choosing me to be a part of their lives. And when you start thinking about it like this, so it's like this magical thing that I'm now very conscious of who I am because of who God made me to be. And now I'm looking for God in those relationships. So like when I'm telling God, thank you so much for making me Rob's wife, now I'm thinking like, my gosh, God gave me to him so that I could be a good wife, so that I could be a submissive wife and a respectful wife, and so that I could support him and encourage him and help him to draw closer to God or whatever it is that God chose me to be for him. So now I'm like looking for God so much more in that relationship. I'm looking for opportunities to pray for him and to have conversations with him about different things. I'm looking for ways to support him. Where before I was grateful for Rob and I was grateful to be his wife, but I think the word choose is the important word, is that God chose me to be his wife. God chose you to be your partner's spouse or your partner's girlfriend or boyfriend or your friend's friend. God chose you to be the parent of your children. He chose you to be the child of your parents. He chose you to be the sibling of your siblings. I mean, you guys, you were chosen to be exactly who you are to all of those people. And so through that, we want to start looking for God in those relationships. And it's so much easier to do when we do this. And it's so much easier to have confidence. And the same thing with our jobs or our careers or our dreams that are in our hearts. Like, God, thank you for choosing me to have this dream. I just talked to my dear friend before I recorded this who has this amazing business plan to go into music ministry at her church and make a business out of it and do children's theater and like these amazing things because God's given her these amazing gifts. And I'm so excited for her. And she can confidently say, God, thank you for choosing me to have this dream and to have this plan and to start to move forward in it. And when you start to think about your dreams and your journey like that, you know that you are chosen to do that because God put it in your heart. So you know that you are equipped to do it. So you can move forward with confidence, knowing that you were chosen to go down this path. And even if it doesn't work out, you guys, that's the beautiful part about knowing that you were chosen to go through it, is you're going to learn from it. You're going to get something from it. And you know that it's part of your journey and that God's going to use it together with all things for your good, because that's what God does. It says it right there in the Bible. So what a cool thing to be able to know and to be able to tell God every morning, thank you for choosing me. And even if you say nothing else, that's still a beautiful statement. Thank you for choosing me to be here today. We've started doing this with our kids. So in the morning, we do affirmations. So all of the kids and me and Rob, we all give 3 affirmations. So we might say, depending on the day and what we feel like we need that day to show up for ourselves that God's already given us. We might say, I am patient, I am energized, and I am a child of God. And that's what we take with us for the day. So now we're doing those 3 affirmations, each of us. And then at the end, we're saying, and God chose me to be blank. And it might be God chose me to be Rob's wife. It might be God chose me to be Andy and Will's mom. We're actually getting ready to go into like vacation Bible school week at our church. And I was asked to be a teacher this time, and I've never done it before. So this morning, my thing was God chose me to be a VBS teacher. And so how much more qualified do I feel when I say that God chose me to do that? Things that you might feel nervous about. I still get nervous about singing in front of people, and I don't feel like I'm a good enough singer to do it, but I do it, and I do it in my church on Sundays. Sometimes I get up and sing with the worship band. I get to lead, help lead the worship. And so this Sunday, before I went into church, I said, God, thank you for choosing me to help lead worship today. Thank you for choosing me to get to sing in front of the congregation. And I'm telling you what, I stood up there and I was less nervous this week than I have been in a really, really, really long time, because I felt that reminder that I was chosen to be there. And the people that were in the congregation were chosen to hear me, whether they liked it or not. But even with this podcast, you guys, I don't always feel qualified to be talking about God, or I'm not a theologian. I haven't studied, I don't know every book in the Bible and every Bible verse memorized or anything like that. And sometimes I feel like, who am I to get to put this out there? Do people think I'm a fraud, or, that imposter syndrome creeps in? But guess what wipes out imposter syndrome? Knowing that you're chosen and knowing that you're equipped to do something because you're chosen to do it by God. So, God, thank you for thank you for choosing me to be a podcaster. And when I know that God is choosing me to do this, He's also equipped me. So who else should be doing it if God chose me? Who else should be, who else should be Rob's wife if God chose me? Who could do it better? Nobody. Who could do better at parenting my children than me if God chose me to parent my children? And you guys, I want you to start thinking like this, because it gives me so much confidence and excitement and makes me feel equipped. And guess what? I'm finding my self-worth in the God who made me, the sovereign God of the universe who created everything. And that's where we need to be finding our self-worth. We need to be going to God, turning to God, thanking Him for choosing us to exist, thanking Him for choosing us to be wherever we are and going through whatever we're going through, because He is where we will find our self-worth that's going to give us the confidence that we need to move forward and execute the plan that He created for us. We're not going to get that anywhere else. We're not going to get it from the world. We're not going to get it from looking on social media and comparing our lives to other people. We're not going to get it from, the coach that overlooks us for the team, or the teacher that overlooks us to be the super student. We're going to get it from God. And if we can learn this, and we can teach our children this, and if we can encourage our friends to understand this, imagine what we can do in this world. Imagine what we can accomplish for the glory of God if we just remind ourselves every day, thank you, God, for choosing me. So I would just love it to hear what God has chosen you to be. I appreciate that you guys listen to this podcast, and you're listening to this right now by no accident. You were chosen to listen to these words, just as I was chosen to share it with you. And I've been so excited to get this message out, because I just think it's been life-changing for me and my family and my friends that I have gotten to share one-on-one this message with. It just changes everything, you guys. And you really start to look, sometimes when my phone rings at the office, I see it's a current client. I'm like, oh no, what happened? I'm going to pick it up and they're going to tell me they got in a car accident or something bad. And the last week and a half when my phones rang, I've thought, thank you, God, for choosing me to get to talk to this person. And that probably sounds so silly to you all, but I've prayed with more of my clients in the last 2 weeks. And I have gotten to hear stories about them more in the last 2 weeks, because I've been open to hearing God's call for that interaction. I was dropped the kids off at school yesterday, and I was joking with Rob on the way to the gas station that God chose me to go to the gas station today. And it's silly, but it's true. And I went to the gas station and I smiled at the guy at the pump across from me and I said hello. And, you never know. God might have used that smile and that hello to brighten up his day. But the other piece of this is that God also chooses what we go through. So even in the hard stuff, God's choosing you to go through that. And I think this helps the outlook of the darkest things too. I have a lot of friends who have gone through a lot of stuff recently. Some of you I know are probably listening to this right now, and you've been through, losing loved ones and other loved ones having these really freak health scares and, all kind of different things. And as you're going through these things, I think it's important that we stop. And I know this is really hard to do sometimes, especially if it's really hard stuff, and say, God, thanks for choosing me to go through this. it stinks right now. I don't like it, but I know that you're going to use this for my good later. And I think, when I look back on some of the hard things that we've been through in the last few years, I'm grateful that God chose me to go through it, because I've been able to use those things for helping others and encouraging others and being able to be there and being able to look at life differently, So being able to really just sit quietly, thank God for choosing you, because the truth is, you were wonderfully and fearfully made. You were created on purpose, and you were chosen to be exactly the way that you are before you were even born. God chose how many hairs are in your head. He chose what your feet look like. He chose, that if you have a chubby tummy like me that you just hate and want to go on a diet all the time, God chose that for me. So I'm going to be okay with it, I think. The things that you don't love about yourself, I think it's still important that remember that God chose those for us. And maybe we can walk with a little more pep in our step, knowing that we were chosen to be exactly who we are. And the choices we make that we dwell over and we're not sure if we should take the new job or do this or do that, whatever decision you make, God chose it for you. So you literally can't mess it up. Like there's nothing you can do to mess up God's plan from you except for turn your face from God. Like as long as you can keep your face on God, as long as you can keep walking in his light, you're going to do amazing things. And so anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this all. I'd love to hear what you guys think. And maybe you've thought this way already. Maybe you've heard a version of this somewhere else, or you've heard something about it somewhere else. I'm sure I'm not the first one to realize this, but it just, like I said, it took me 41 years and a lot of prayer, and God just smacked me in the face with it just like last week. So I was just so excited to share it with all of you, and hopefully encourage you all to know your self-worth comes from God and that you are chosen. And, start talking to God about what he's chosen you and who he's chosen you to be, and see how that changes your day. So I'm going to end today with Joshua 1:9. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened and do not be dismayed. For the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Thank you all for listening. If you like what you heard, please share this. Leave me a comment or a review on Apple Podcast. The more that you guys share this and that you comment and like it, the more other people are going to get to hear these messages and hopefully be inspired to become the person that God has created them to be.